What's up, Tailgaters? A year in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. The road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer has hit this weekend. We are doing 3 teams both today and tomorrow on Sunday. And today we are in Fresno, California. Going to be kicking things off this weekend with the Fresno State Bulldogs, and a new era for the Bulldogs awaits. Can they reach the mountaintop of the Mountain West again? My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. Thank you all so much for clicking on the video and for helping to support the channel. If you would like to support the channel even further, then please go down below, hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, hey, you might as well ring the bell. Turning on notifications will ensure that you don't miss an upload during prediction season, especially not one for your favorite team. Now, I am a sports media graduate delving into the professional world of the industry, so if all of you would like to see the cool stuff I get to do while still being up to date on what goes on this very YouTube channel, then please give me a follow on social media. It's at TailgateNate29. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and you can even email me, tailgatenate29@gmail.com. Thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me in the channel in whatever way you may be doing so. Apologies, I'm going to pan my camera down a little bit. There we go, that's much better. Let's now dive on in, talking about the Fresno State Bulldogs. They have a new head coach. It is this guy right over here in Matt Entz, and boy, does he bring a lot of winning tradition into this program. The infamous 16-0 undefeated national championship run in 2019 with the North Dakota State Bison, won another national championship in 2021, was 60-11 as a head coach with the Bison, took a year off from being a head coach and was last year's linebacker coach at USC. Now has come over here to Fresno State, a program that has seen many great head coaches. Think about Kalen DeBoer that has just come through this program, has some good tradition, and man, they're looking to bark up on top of the mountain again this year. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we are going to go through a roster overview, offense over here to the left, defense over here to the right, and at the end of the video, I will go through the Fresno State football schedule. We will give it a game-by-game preview and prediction, and this video overall is here to tell all of you what I think about the Fresno State Bulldogs here in 2025. But before we do get started, right below me are returning production numbers. They are, according to ESPN, factoring in transfer portal additions up to a certain percentage. Even down below that, recruiting and transfer portal ranks for the class of 2025 are according to 24/7 Sports. Now, with all that said and done and out of the way, let us talk. Starting off with the Fresno State offense, your offensive coordinator is Josh Davis, and their leading passer from a season ago in Mikey Keene, 2,892 yards, 18 touchdowns, 11 interceptions on 70.5% completion percentage. Yes, the touchdown-interception ratio could have been better, but overall a solid season for Mikey Keene last year. He is now with the Maize and Blue. He has transferred over to play football at the University of Michigan, so you do have a couple portal pieces coming in here. However, it is EJ Warner that is likely the best of the bunch and will probably get that starting role this season. Of course, the son, I do believe, of the NFL and Super Bowl legend Kurt Warner. Here is what he has done during his past 3 seasons as a starting quarterback. Has eclipsed 3,000 yards twice. The only time he didn't do it was last year with the Rice Owls after starting his career with the Temple Owls. So played for 2 programs that, again, go by the nickname Owls. Now over here with the Bulldogs, what he did last year, 2,710 yards, 17 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. It was his worst touchdown-interception ratio he's seen throughout his career, but the interceptions have been a problem for EJ Warner, and I think that's going to be the big thing here with this team. If he can cut back on those picks, and he is also yet to, no, my apologies, he has eclipsed 20 touchdowns once. He did that in 2023 with the Temple Owls. If he can, I'd say, get to 25 and at very least get out of the double-digit realm of picks, he's a guy that usually is fairly accurate with the ball. He's already shown capability to be a 3,000-yard passer. He did it twice with Temple. I think EJ Warner's a really darn good quarterback. I think he's got some pretty good potential, and I definitely do believe that Matt Entz, look at all the quarterbacks he helped develop at North Dakota State. I do think that EJ Warner can be a very viable option and a really good quarterback here, of course, with the necessary improvements that I just talked about. Malik Sherrod, as you move on to the linebacking room, not a huge piece for this team. Last season, only rushed for 196 yards and 4 touchdowns, but when you look at what Malik Sherrod has meant to this program throughout his Bulldog career, I mean, it simply has been outstanding, especially in 2023. 966 yards and 9 touchdowns on 5.6 yards per carry. production dropped off last year. Well, Malik Sherrod has now decided to portal out of the program. No matter your top 2 rushers from a season ago, the guys that did give you the most production. Again, it's not focused on what you lost. It's focused on what you have, even though Sherrod's going to be a good back over with Boise State, another Mountain West team. Elijah Gilliams, sorry, that should be Gilliam. Apologies for that. The S liked to sneak its way in there. 466 yards and 8 touchdowns for Gilliam last year. That was only on around 3.9 yards per carry. The guy that was more impressive in that facet last year was Bryson Donaldson, who had 6 yards per carry and was just 4 yards shy of matching Gilliam for the team high. 462 yards instead of 466, 3 touchdowns on only 77 carries. Those guys are probably going to split time this year, but if you were to ask me, Nate, what's the guy that's probably going to get the most carries by the end of the season? I'm probably going to go with Bryson Donaldson based off of the efficiency that he showed last season. However, wouldn't necessarily surprise me either way, but there you go. That is the backfield in Gilliam and Donaldson. Wide receiver room, well, your top 3 wideouts are gone, led by Mac Delana, who is now going to be with the Kansas City Chiefs, 1,065 yards and 8 touchdowns on 64 catches last year. You're also going to be losing the likes of Jalen Moss and that of Raylan Sharp, who is transferred over to Arkansas. Elijah Gilliam is the leading receiver coming back to this program with 203 yards receiving in 32 catches last year. Again, not a big play guy, just gets a lot of flip and screen passes out of the backfield. So what does come back? Well, Josiah Freeman comes back, and even though he didn't get 100 yards last year, has had solid production at times in years prior for this Fresno State program. He's going to be the most experienced piece, and a lot of other guys really are going to have to step up, but you do get some transfers coming in. Josiah Aon is coming in from Western Colorado. I probably butchered that last name, so I apologize. Another Jayan Farrar, or no, sorry, Jayan Farrar, and then it's Josiah Aon. I'm mixing up a whole ton of stuff here, but Jayan Farrar is coming into the program from Ventura College, and then you also get Jaleel McClain, who was a former Louisville Cardinal, along with some other solid pieces that, again, are just going to be stepping up and needing to provide big roles here for this room. What's more, in your tight end room, well, this is the only guy that caught over 100 yards worth of production that is not a running back that's either a wide receiver or tight end that's coming back for you this year. It's your lead tight end in Richie Anderson. So he is going to return again, is the overall leading receiver that does come back here to the team, a guy that is in the wide receiver room. Again, as I said earlier, Gilliam was the guy that had the most receiving yards that returns to the team, but in terms of pass catching options, true pass catching options, not that Gilliam can't be, it is Richie Anderson. So he's going to be back to lead the tight end room, and he is only a sophomore, I do believe. Yes, he is a true sophomore, so the rest of the room behind him is pretty experienced. Jake Tarwater is a redshirt senior, as well as Cameron Beecham being a redshirt senior as well. As it says right there, depth behind him is experience. As far as the offensive line goes, starters are going to need to be replaced. However, there are some portal pieces that are going to help. However, a lot of this the offensive line room could be filled by pieces who have already been within this program. So even though it is a new head coach, new system, new quarterback, it is not a horrible amount of overturn on this offense, although I do think the wide receiver room, to live up to what it did last year, definitely is going to take some pieces just fitting in the right way. As far as your defense goes, we'll talk about that now. Nick Benedetto is your defensive coordinator, and it was a pretty solid defense last year. There were times last year where the offense really struggled. The defense, for the most part, was able to hold its own outside of a couple of games. It's got to be able to continue that, and I think it's got to be able to increase its pressure from last season. Only 24 sacks last year, and they only recovered 5 fumbles. Now, they forced 11 of them, but they only were able to jump on top of 5. Secondary overall, I mean, honestly, it was pretty solid. 49 passes defended and 15 picks. Really want to keep that up. I just think that pressure up on the defensive front can definitely increase. And you do get multiple defensive line leaders that are going to be departing here from this team. Most notably, probably a guy by the name of Devo Bridges. He is going to be gone, as well as just a ton of other names for you. Jacob Holmes is another one. He is transferring over to West Virginia. But you do still get a really talented piece and a former Power 4 player back. He was formerly at USC, played with Fresno State last year, 24 tackles, had 3 sacks last season to go along with 4 quarterback hurries, and forced 3 of those 11 fumbles forced last year. It is Corey Foreman. Really good player coming in off the edge. He's probably going to leave this defensive line unit that's, again, going to see a lot of moving pieces. You have transfers coming in, such as Martin Owusu and Michael Jordan. You have returners coming back, such as Jazon Jackson, Auckland Asiata. I probably butchered that last name there as well. And many other pieces that you can mention there too. So Corey Foreman's going to try to take that lead in the defensive line room this year and be that guy that you can rely upon to give you consistent and really good production out of your front four. As far as your linebacking room goes, it gets gutted. Pretty much every major piece is going to be gone, including top two tacklers from last season. To a CV Nomura is gone, as well as a guy by the name of, if I get the first name, Malachi Langley is going to be gone off this team as well. Nomura now in the NFL. Langley has exhausted his eligibility. 109 tackles for Nomura, 83 tackles for Langley to go along with 3 sacks. I believe that was, yes, tied for third on the team with that of Corey Foreman, who I forgot to mention also had 3 sacks from a season ago. And then many more pieces beyond that do leave as well. Now, there are going to be some transfers that come in to help this linebacking room, such as Jaden Pearson, who is coming over from Utah State and has been pretty much everywhere throughout his collegiate career. Kavion Thunderbird is coming in. By the way, just one of the best names in college football, mind you. He is a transfer over from Arizona State. But other than that, Tim Thomas has to fill into a role. Logan Stutt has to fill into a role. And many other names will have to do so as well. So linebacker room gets a major overhaul. I think pretty much the entirety of your 2 deep from last season is gone. So we'll see what pieces fit into place where. As far as your defensive back room, your 4 top, that's supposed to say defensive backs there. There you go. Now it does. Your 4 top defensive backs are going to exit after playing in some massive roles for this team last season. You do have a couple of nice returners, but Dean Clark is going to be gone. And you just lose some other really, really valuable pieces. Again, Dean Clark, one of them, Cam Lockridge being another one, as well as a guy by the name of Julian Neal, also transferring over to Arkansas. However, Alzillian Hamilton, Jaden Davis, those are the 2 names you got to watch out for in the secondary. Gave you a corner in Hamilton, gave you a safety in Davis. They will lead their respective groupings in this defensive back unit. And overall, I mean, hey, some nice portal pieces do come in. Simeon Harris is in from Utah State, 59 tackles, 4 passes defended, and a pick a couple seasons ago in 2023 to go along with some other transfers and experienced returners in there as well. As far as the special teams unit, it is consistent from last year. Dylan Lynch back to kick, while Clay Lawrence is back to punt here for the special teams group in 2025, because kickers are people too. You must show them some love. And so overall, when you talk about this team, I get it's a new system. And yeah, normally I'm pretty skeptical when teams are enveloping in a new system. But man, for as successful as Nick Entz has been, Matt Entz. I have no clue where that came from. As successful as Entz has been wherever he's gone, especially at North Dakota State, I do think there are going to be some things that need to adjust, especially a lot of talent that needs to be filled in for. But this unit, I think overall is pretty talented. Again, if EJ Warner can clean some things up, I really like that quarterback position. Wide receiver room, again, I don't know if it's going to be as good as last year, but it's still got some really good pieces. And even though you're losing a ton out of your defensive production, hey, there still are some solid pieces that come back that I think lay a good foundation for what overall should be a really solid team out of the Mountain West this season. All right, now it's time for the fun part. Here is your 2025 Fresno State football schedule. But before we dive on into this, let's look down below me at some odds courtesy of FanDuel that you might want to pay attention to. It's just context to see how good the odds makers think Fresno State is going to be this season. You go place your money in whatever facet you want to do so. It is your money. You decide what you should do with it. Now, plus 1,000 odds to win the conference. I believe that's in the top half. It might very well be top 5, number 5. If not, they are 6th. They're, again, in that top half, one of the favorites. In fact, now that I think about it, they might be 4th. Doesn't matter, plus 1,000 odds. Those are pretty solid ones to go win the Mountain West Conference. Plus 3,000 odds to get into the college football playoff. There are a lot of tough teams you have to get through in the Mountain West this year. But when you take a look at this Mountain West schedule, guys, apart from a couple of games and this non-conference schedule as well, which we'll dive into, I think this schedule, at least for the majority of their Mountain West competition, overall can be pretty favorable. 6.5 is that over-under win total. That's a big number that you need to pay attention to. But let's start it out with this non-conference schedule. I'm going to tell you, I think they win at least one of these first 3 games. I think they're going to beat Southern, no problem. I don't really have to talk too much about that one. But this one here against Kansas, really, really interesting one. Kansas did get some new turf, which looks really, really good, by the way. But this is a Kansas team that does return some mainstays, and it includes their quarterback in Jalen Daniels, that I think is going to be really tough for a Fresno State team that is just trying to fit pieces in. And again, it's a lot of returners. So when you bring guys in through the portal, that's one thing. When you have a bunch of returners that are used to one system, now they have to adjust to a entirely different one. That definitely can be a challenge. Again, I think Fresno State's going to figure it out relatively quickly here, but going on the road to play a team that has Jalen Daniels at the quarterback position, you have LaShawn Williams in your running back room. I do like what they did in the transfer portal as far as wide receivers go, and some really dynamic defensive transfers like Bengali Kamara, DJ Graham, Cyrene Gibbs, Lyric Rawls, and some others. I think you're going to go on the road and lose this one here. One of the few games in week 0. Again, college football just shy of a month away. I say just under a month away. Kansas, I think, is going to win this week 0 matchup. I just think some of the things they can throw at you offensively, especially with Daniels at quarterback, will be a little bit too much. And again, the offense was the inconsistent part. It'll need to find its rhythm early this year. At home against Georgia Southern. Really like this matchup here for Fresno State, but I also really like Georgia Southern as a team. Again, led by Clay Helton. This is a Georgia Southern team that is still really, really talented. It still has some really good wide receiver pieces, even though its top receiver is gone, even though its lead running back option is gone. OJ Arnold coming back. I think he's going to be a good back. JC French, always nice to have consistency at the quarterback position. And defensively, I think they've got a lot of nice talent. This honestly was a big 50-50 game for me, because I could see either team winning this one. I think you could make the argument that, look, JC French and this Georgia Southern offense fits everything together with all the dynamic weapons they have. They'll be too much for the Fresno State defense. You could also make the case that Fresno State, with this winning system and culture, on top of getting their first home game and already having a full game under their belt, making the adjustments and being prepared for this Georgia Southern team, you could definitely make that case there as well. I think I'm going to side with the home side here on this one. I don't know if I talked about it much in my Georgia Southern video, but this really is a back and forth game for me. I went back and forth predicting this one. Of course, finally landed on Georgia Southern losing that game, and Fresno State picks up its first win against the Eagles at home. 50-50, toss it up. That could be the difference between a 6 or 7, possibly 7 or 8 win season. When you take a look at this Oregon State game, though, this is one that I think you're going to lose. I did tease it earlier. I think you're going to win only one of these games, lose the other 2. Well, I think you get the win at home and lose these 2 on the road. Much like Kansas, Oregon State did not have a successful season last year. 5-7, same as Kansas, but all the talent is there, right? And now you're getting a quarterback coming in with bona fide Power 4 experience in Malik Murphy after some disastrous quarterback play for this Beaver team last year. I like Anthony Hankerson at the running back position. I really like some of the wide receiver pieces they have coming back. And defensively, getting Nico Taylor back, oh my goodness, as a linebacker is just massive. And this is the defense that can really shine this season as Oregon State awaits this new look Pac-12. Again, I already told you I think they're going to beat Southern, and I don't think I'm going to get many arguments from the peanut gallery in picking that one as a win. On the road at Hawaii, to me, this is another one of those pivot games that can decide a 6 or 7, possibly a 7 or 8 win season, because Timmy Chang, I think, is starting to really build this program to become competitive again in the Mountain West Conference. For the past couple of years, they've just sat at the bottom. Last year was a big step in the right direction. 5-7, one more win, they get into a bowl game. Well, you do have a new quarterback this year, but he does have a lot of talent surrounding him. Wide receivers get a lot of pieces back. Landon Sims comes back to be your running back this season. And the defense might be the most experienced one in the Mountain West Conference in terms of what class everybody is. They got graduates, they got seniors. Again, this is another one of those 50-50 games. I really could go either way with this one, but I'm going to go with the team that I think has the better coach. And I think that's Matt Entz. And overall, breaking in that new quarterback for Hawaii, I think it's going to be a little bit of trouble against a defense that should still do very well to hold its own this season. Therefore, on the road against Hawaii, and also not that long of a road trip compared to some of the other teams that got to travel to play the Rainbow Warriors in Hawaii. You get your first bye week of the season here finally. Because you play week 0, you get 3 of them. Nevada will also be no trouble. A team still trying to find its identity and rebuild in the Mountain West Conference. Second half of the schedule you dive on into now, and you do have some really tough games to open up the second half. You got to go on the road to play Colorado State on a Friday night, and I do think you lose this one. Colorado State still has Braden Fowler-Nicolosi at the quarterback position, and even though he no longer is going to have Torrey Horton to throw the football to, Kojo Antwi is he's a very nice transfer coming over from Ohio State. Again, got lost in a very loaded wide receiver room, and the Buckeyes don't recruit just anybody to play wide receiver for them. You got to be a dog, and I think Antwi can prove to be that, and still some solid weapons surrounding there. Much like a team we're going to talk about later today, actually, Colorado State's a little bit portal built through, defensively. They are portal built defensively. There you go. I will rephrase it. However, much like some of the other teams I've talked about here on the channel, I think they did well with what they got out of the portal. Jacob Ellis, I think, is a really good linebacker that comes into the program. Jaquez Evans, really like him as a defensive lineman. And I think overall, Colorado State's going to have some pretty good pressure this year. Will be a little bit too much on this Bulldog offensive line. Second bye week of the year comes now in San Diego State. I will not lie to you. I was a big believer in Sean Lewis when he took over that job, and my belief is kind of diminishing the more and more I keep seeing the results on the field. This is the San Diego State team that, again, trying to flip their identity from being a defensive-minded team under Brady Hoke to now more of an offensive system under Sean Lewis, of course, being an offensive mind. It's a San Diego State team that has really, really struggled, and while there's a lot of potential to see some good improvement this year, I think it's overall still going to be a struggle, and who knows, maybe this is Sean Lewis's last ride, and we don't know it. I highly doubt it. I think they're going to give him some more time, but it could be another really rough year for the Aztec faithful. That's a win at home for Fresno State, and then on the road against Boise. This is by far and away probably the toughest game that is on this schedule. I think Boise State is still that group of 5 front runner. I think they are a simply sensational bunch. Even without Ashton Genty, Sire Gaines, I think, is going to be a very nice running back. And look at who's there now, too. Malik Sherrod. He gets back to what he was doing for the Bulldogs in 2022 and 2023. Boise State got a home run hit out of the transfer portal. A lot of good wide receiver pieces still there. Most importantly, offensively, Maddox Madsen returns, and a lot. Even though you lost a lot, still a lot of good defensive pieces, including in that secondary. Boise State's just too talented. They're going to be too much for a ton of teams in the Mountain West, and Fresno State is one of them. However, after your third and final bye week of the year, I think you get 2 pretty solid games. Wyoming, much like San Diego State, still trying to find their identity now that Craig Bohl has moved on, decided to retire, and Wyoming still trying to figure out what exactly they want to build as a program over there. And then for Utah State, Bryson Barnes is at quarterback. I think he's okay. I don't think his ceiling is terribly high. You did get some really nice offensive transfer portal pieces coming in, and pretty much your entire wide receiver room is going to be rebuilt. Defensively, I think they did okay for themselves in the transfer portal. I do like some of the pieces they did bring in, but overall, compared to the rest of the Mountain West Conference, I just think Utah State is a step or 2 behind, and that's exactly the way I see it against this Fresno State team. I think especially if E.J. Warner has found his groove with the offense, and again, maybe is posting numbers like I mentioned briefly, where he is 25 touchdowns, sub 10 interceptions, completion percentage is the highest in his career. Fresno State's going to be a tough offense to be able to slow down, and I don't think Utah State's got the defensive pieces at all. And that brings us to the final game of the season. Again, you can call this another one of these swing games. I think Fresno State has got a lot of them on the schedule this season. But San Jose State, I think, is still going to be really talented this season with Walker Eget coming back at quarterback. Floyd Chalk is coming back at running back. A rebuilt wide receiver room that I really like all of the pieces that come out of it. Very experienced offensive line and defensively. I really do like what Ken Nui-Matalolo has done throughout his career as a head coach, like what he did last year with the Spartans team. And overall, I think it'd be a little hard not to see a jump, at least in conference record, for the Spartans this season. I think they get that win against Fresno State. So the Bulldogs proved to struggle on the road, but they still go 7-5 in Matt Ent's first season. And look, this is a Fresno State team that with Entz at the helm, sky's the limit, baby. I think this year's going to be a very nice stepping stone. Wait for Entz to get his guys in, his system fully enveloped, and I guarantee you, maybe not this year. It could prove to be this year, absolutely, but maybe at least in a couple of years, watch out for Fresno State down the line. I think they have a really good one at the head coaching position, and Fresno State takes that first step into getting back on top of the Mountain West this season. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.